Hey guys, just wanted to go over some squat tips to help you get started with your plan really well. The basis of all these technique cues are primarily going to be to keep you safe by keeping your joints stacked mechanically very well. That will also increase the efficiency that you can move loads with on the squat and deadlift and all these other things, because the themes are overall very much the same. Now, with these squat cues specifically, you're actually going to be able to lift more weight once you get adapted to them and can successfully pull off techniques that I'm going to show you and be safe. So it's a win-win. But the big things are the overall arching themes are trying to keep your torso as upright as possible and also getting your lower limbs stacked. So when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about keeping your knees more so in line with your feet. If my toes are pointed this way, I want my femur to go this same angle. You don't want it to be inside to where it's pointing inside of your toe line. You also don't want it to be outside, pointing outside your toe line. You want everything to be nice and balanced. And there are some variables that we can change with the approach on these to make sure you can stay upright, keep the stress off your back, and keep the stress on your hips and legs where you really want it, where the results are going to be. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set our low back arch. Now what this is going to effectively do is turn our butt up. What this does is it creates tension in your hamstrings and your glutes. Without this position, you can't really contribute a whole lot due to when your glutes will actually fire. If your low back isn't tight, it just rotates your hips and rounds your lower back. So we really want to keep the hips in general involved in the movement. So we're going to turn the butt up. We're going to go down, keeping our chest up and looking up as well to keep our posture good and strong. Go down until our hips are below our knees, the top of the hip here, where the skin kind of folds over at the hip bone, down below the kneecaps, and stand back up. Now, you'll probably notice my toes are pointed out a little bit, but I'm still hitting kind of a bottom out squat here. And when that happens, I'm still getting a full range of motion on my knee joint, which is going to incorporate my quadriceps as much as they can be used. But by keeping my knees out, I can keep my posture straight up and down, my low back tight, and I can stand straight up using my hips and my quads together. Now, many times you'll see toes pointed straight ahead, which means the hips go back and the knees go more forward instead of out to the sides. And what that will create is you have to sit much farther back to hit the bottom of the squat, and that means that your low back is going to round. When you come out of this position, most of the time, with any kind of decent weight at all, you're going to see this, where your hips rise out of the bottom faster than your shoulders. That means that mechanically, your posture is broken down, and you're only going to be extending your knees out of the bottom without the hip extension to complement it. What that causes is the hips to kick back like this. If you just watch the angle of the knees, that's all that changes. From here, knee extension, but the angle of my hips actually isn't changing. So what we want to do, turn the toes out, allow the knees to go out to the sides. You still get a full range of motion on the knees, but you stay upright, and you can use your hips the entire time. So with those tips, you should be able to keep your posture up, nice and tight, engage the hips fully, and still get a full range of motion on the knees, which will develop your quads. But when you can use all those things synchronistically, all at the same time, your power output and your force output goes way higher. With that comes more weight. With more weight comes more strength. With more strength comes more development. So if you have any questions, just let me know.